Hey everybody, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. If you'll remember last Friday's video, we started the process of turning a kid's toothbrush into a paddle tail or a boot tail swim bait. And of course using the toothbrush to make the master. If you'll remember, we cut it, we shaped it, we modified it, we added the boot tail onto it, and finally we started the process of putting it into a mold box. And then at the last minute, when we were about to pour the silicone to make that first half of the mold, that silicone turned out to be garbage. It was too hard to actually work with. Check it out. I ordered some and I'm gonna cut it open right now if I can find a knife. Now, if you're wondering, no, I didn't order more smooth-on material. That stuff seems to have the shortest shelf life ever. So I bought this stuff. And yes, it's some kind of no-name, but it's about half the price for about twice the amount. So this is not only going to be a build, it's also going to be a bit of an experiment and a bit of a product review. And if it turns out that this stuff is worth using, then I'll put the link in the description below so you guys can take advantage of my discovery, maybe. So this is where we ended up at the end of the last video, with the masters embedded in the clay in this weird multicolor hippie vomit clay. And I calculated out the volume of the silicone I need, and at this point I don't have to coat anything with a demolding agent or Vaseline or anything like that, because the silicone shouldn't stick to anything. But since I don't know this stuff, I'm going to use some universal demolding agent. This is it's made by Smooth On, but it's worked pretty well up to now. I'm just going to take this and spray it along the walls. And then I'm just going to let it set just for a little while. And while that dries a little bit, I'm going to mix the silicone. Now this silicone is 1-to-1 ratio. It says by weight, but it also works by volume. It gets rid of all of its bubbles on its own. You don't have to wait too long, and you don't have to put it under a vacuum. That's close enough. Now I'll grab part B, and I'm just going to bring it up just past the line, just a hair. All right, I'm gonna mix it up and pour it in. What I don't like about this is that it's a single color, so difficult to tell when you've done a really good job mixing it. So I guess the key is to overkill, and I'll be mixing for a while. Five minutes of mixing can really give you a forearm workout. So there's no specification sheet. That means I don't know how hard this silicone is going to be when it's done. If it's going to be super soft, it's going to be super hard. So I take a lot of risks and I bring you guys along. I like experimenting. I like finding out that I can use something alternative that's inexpensive and it still works. All right, that should do it. You know, before I pour it, I'm going to go ahead and level this box so I don't have to mess with it afterwards. All right, that should do it. All right, let's pour. I like to start in one corner and pour it in a nice thin stream. All right, that looks perfect. All right, that should do it. Hopefully we won't have any more disasters, and by tomorrow this is going to be good and firm. I'll be able to pull the clay off the back and we'll pour the second half. All right, we're back. I'm back in here and I just checked the set on this silicone and it's set super hard. Feels like a harder kind of silicone than that Emu 30, I guess that was. It still feels flexible and rubbery, and it looks a lot less bubbly. You can see it's pretty hard, and it's really glassy and smooth. So we can pull the clay off the back. There it goes. All right, I got the clay out, but it's a little weird because the clay seems to have kind of semi-dissolved in contact with this silicone. So I don't know what's going on. I've never had that happen before. My hopes is that I can clean this up with some acetone and I'll end up with a surface I can cast the next half in, because this right now is just a little tacky. So I'm hoping if I leave it alone, it'll set up like the rest of it did and we can pour the next half. All right, that was the last of the little vent wires I had to put back in, because what I ended up having to do was pull everything off the silicone, clean the silicone surface as best I could, and then put everything back. And luckily, it has hardened nice and firm and isn't all gooey and sticky like it was when we first took that clay off. And I started off blaming it on the clay, but I'm not really sure. There are three elements involved, right? The silicone, the clay, and that Where'd it go? Smooth On Universal Mold Release that I sprayed on everything just to be safe because I wasn't sure about the silicone, but I think the silicone was rock solid. That's probably the culprit. But this wouldn't be the engineered angler if we didn't set up a test, so I did a little bit of an experiment. What I did was I made a little clay cup from the clay I bought at Walmart, and I made a little clay cup from the old clay that I've been using for a couple of years. If I pull this little silicone slug out of the clay and it's gooey, then I know it's the clay. If it's not, then I know it's that mold release. So let's give it a shot. I'll do the old clay first. Let's see. Look at that, it's actually gooey, and I was blaming it on the mold release. All right, they're both gooey, so it is the clay. And that's just the risk you run when you're buying an unknown name of silicone. Well, I guess we can call this alphabet soup silicone, I guess, whatever that is. But the problem isn't the silicone, it's that I don't have any data on it. I have no spec. So it doesn't tell me whether it's tin or it's platinum curing. And I know the tin curing style works perfect with this kind of clay, but the platinum needs sulfur-free clay. But the good news is if this is platinum cure, then it's even a lot cheaper. And the good thing about platinum cure silicone is that it tends to last longer as a mold. It'll hold details for longer and it won't deteriorate and it won't start to get cracks in it. So the next test for this silicone will be to get some sulfur-free clay, and we'll try it again. In the meantime, let's get back to this build. Let me show you one more indication that this silicone is actually pretty good stuff. I pulled this thin layer out of the inside of the cup and it came out in one piece. That's always a super good indicator that it's quality stuff. Let's mix another 280 milliliters and pour it in there. You thought I was gonna forget the Vaseline, didn't you? Me too. All right, I've got it level. And you guys let me know in the comments if you don't want to see the goof ups and the experiments, because I could edit through a video and just have it be step-by-step processes and successes every time. But I thought I would share everything I run into and everything I learned. So you guys let me know what you prefer. All right, that's it. It's poured, and now it's up to fate, I guess. And I hope that this silicone continues to behave well. All right, Saturday morning, and it's overcast. Hopefully we'll have better weather later. We got to get to this thing. It's set up nice and hard because I want to go ahead and make some lures so we can go fishing either this afternoon or tomorrow. All right, this stuff is set up nice and hard, and I should be able to just pry this open and break the joints because it's just hot glue. All right. Oh, that looks good. All right. Come on, keep going. Yes. I'm gonna go ahead and clean the Vaseline off and make sure all these vents are open. And then we'll go ahead and get some soft plastics melted down and get this thing heated up. All right, I've got some soft plastic melting in the microwave, and I've got the mold set up here with a couple of plates in the vise so it doesn't shift or anything. And I'm hoping it doesn't seep or leak. And there's our sound. All right, this stuff is super hot. I've heated up the syringe, and let's see how we do here. Should be plenty for two. Go. I got some good pressure on it. Let's see how it sets up. All right, it's been about 10 minutes. Let's pull this thing out of here. Take it to the other bench. All right, let's see how this is gonna look. All right, that's not too bad. I colored the eyes with some little mica dust. That looks pretty good, but we're gonna try something a little different on this next one. All right, with this one, I'm gonna try to put a little bit of black soft plastic in the eye socket itself with a dropper. Put them back together, put it back in the vise. Well, the port to the right one seemed to have gotten blocked. I'm going to have to see what happened there, but this one looked like it poured okay. I'm gonna let it harden just a little longer and then we'll see what the other eye looks like. All right, let me take off these little stringy things. And that looks pretty nice. From a toothbrush to a soft plastic bait. That's not too bad. All right, so typically I use the Plastisol from Alumilite. They call it Alumisol, and it works great. I've never had any issue with it. It's a lot more expensive than using soft plastics you already have. Or you're like me, and my friends know that I do this kind of thing, so they hand me all the stuff they don't want. And one of my buddies gave me like a 2-gallon bucket full of brand new soft plastic. And I also use the Alumilite heat stabilizer for this stuff. This stuff allows you to reheat the plastic over and over and it doesn't start to get burnt or lose its color. And I'll go ahead and have links in the description for this stuff. All right, so the trick of using a little bit of black Plastisol dripped in with an eyedropper for the eyes works really well, but if you don't have the patience for that and you'd rather do it another way, there's one other way I do it. All right, so what I'm using is powdered pigment, and this little set came from Walmart. I think I paid like $8 like 4 or 5 years ago. So it's an assortment of colors and they're very sort of pearlescent, almost metallic. I'm going to use the black for the eyes. And all I do is take a very small, this is a number 2 artist's brush. It's got really soft bristles. And this can be a little messy, so it's not a bad idea to work on paper towel or something. So I'm just going to dip a little bit out of this little pot. You want to try to have as little on the brush as possible because it will flake off. And so you just sort of dab it on. It's kind of like painting, but not exactly. All right, so now to set that powder into the plastic, you've got to melt it just a little bit. And I use a heat gun, and this is just a cheap heat gun from Harbor Freight. And the idea is to heat it up until it just starts to get shiny. All right, there you go. And if you want to add additional colors to the rest of the body, you can do that with this stuff too. It's not as nice as doing it with actual soft plastic, but it can give you a pretty nice effect, especially when you have contours like this to follow. And there you go, you got a lure that just looks a little more interesting. Well, we went from this to this to this and to the beginning of a pretty good collection of soft plastic swim baits that we'll be able to use pretty soon out in the lake, hopefully. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know we had a couple of oops moments, but we got through it, and I think we got a halfway decent soft plastic swim bait. So if you enjoyed it or got something out of it, give me a thumbs up. And if this is your 3rd or 4th Engineered Angler video, you must be getting something out of it. Might as well subscribe. Normally at the end of a build like this, I would go to the lake and we'd do some underwater shots, maybe even fish a little bit, but the weather and the time has gotten away from me, and it's raining and it's late, and it'll all have to wait for another time. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next Friday. And there you go, you get that solo cup condom. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Engineered Angler. Blanger now? I'm an engineer, but I'm not a blanger.